Well, in this passage, Paul says he's glad he's suffering, and he identifies the suffering that he's facing with the suffering that Christ faced, the persecution that the believers face on behalf of Christ and the message of Christ. And so Paul's saying, I take joy in that suffering. Well, he's counteracting this thought in Colossae that these heretics would try to push onto the believers there that, hey, Paul's doctrine's wrong, because if he was right, why would God allow him to suffer? If he was doing the right thing and preaching the right gospel, he wouldn't be in jail, he wouldn't be beaten, there wouldn't be a bounty out for his head. And so they're trying to use Paul's suffering, these heretics are, as kind of a proof that his gospel's incorrect. And Paul's saying, listen, I'm not ashamed of this. In fact, I take joy in it because A, it identifies me with Jesus. If he suffered, when I suffer for his sake, then I'm like him. So he takes joy in that. But he also takes joy in it because Christ promised that we would suffer on behalf of the gospel. And so sometimes the only way to know that you're doing the right thing, sometimes the only way to know that you're heading the right direction, sometimes the only way in this case specifically in Colossae to know you're preaching the right gospel is when you face opposition. If there were no opposition, then maybe he wouldn't be doing what Jesus said, because Jesus said, if you do this, they will persecute you. They hated me first, and they're going to hate you when you stand for me. And so for Paul, this was like a trophy. This was like proof, hey, if this is happening, if I'm suffering this way, then Christ is with me because he promised me that I would. So it identifies him with Jesus, and it puts him in good company with all the others that went before him, that would come after him. Man, when we suffer, we stand in the company of Christ our Lord. We stand in the company of martyrs. We stand in the company of the disciples who would lose their life for Jesus. So Paul was honored. For him, it wasn't a black mark or a smudge on the validity of his gospel. It was proof that his gospel was in fact the real gospel. So for us, when we suffer, sometimes it's the only way to know that maybe we're going in the right direction when we face that opposition.